Mark Barnes, former CEO of the South African Post Office, gives us his view of where the money should go. Very good morning to you, Mark. Before we get on to the 500 billion, let's take a quick look at IMF. 70 billion heading our way. Is this good for us?
Well, good morning, Jane and everybody. It's necessary. It's the first time we've ever had to go there to get it, but it's necessary. I mean, the challenge with IMF funding is that it comes with rules, which is a good thing, but it also has to be repaid. You know, all of this money that we're talking about has to generate a return. All
right. The 500 billion, you've got an idea of how best to utilize what little is left.
Yeah, it was a tweet. It's an idea. It's not a strategic document. But let me say this. The point I've just made is this is extra money. This is new money. It's 130 billion diverted from other causes and 350-odd billion coming from including the IMF. So it's new money into the system. Let's think about it differently. If you took a bird's eye view of South Africa, you would see two circles of non-intersecting capital. You'd see business, as you know, established capital, circulating around in the JSE, in the capital markets and in the banks. And then you'd see the government allocating capital primarily to support social security. And the source of that capital is from business. And that transfer keeps taking place. And that's how it works. What happens is that money flies over the top of the informal sector, of the growth sector. And I would argue that that new money should be invested right there where the SMEs live, where the informal market struggles to operate. And we need business people across our demographic to understand those markets which are functional but just need more capital. And we need to put the money there. And I would argue that we can't take this money and plow it into further SOEs or social cause or whatever. We've got to build a middle class. We all want it. No one's prepared to put the money there. I reckon we could get 10 smart people, and if we left them to their own devices, they would build a new economy.
Okay, just 10. I mean, we've got a plethora of groups and, I don't know, organizations focusing on this. How come just 10? Who would they be? What sort of talent, skill would they need?
Yeah, well, I mean, as long as if we haven't got enough cooks in the kitchen, I mean, already. So, someone responded, an economist responded to my tweet saying, but Mark, there are already 400 people and they get 1.5 trillion a year, which is very department. 10 people, why? I wouldn't even ask them to act in concert. You don't need a lot of people. What you need is a lot of expertise and an attitude and an understanding and an experience in growth. So I would argue that these are business leaders, emerging and previously demonstrably successful business people across all of the metrics in our country, who understand that if you walk into the crossroads of Alexandria, you'll see a bustling business community, turnover, billions, capital, very hard to get. And you juxtaposition that, if you take a view from there across to Sandton, you'll see buildings going up. And I would argue that those people who are building massive buildings are forgetting that they need clients to fill those spaces. And the clients are disappearing because the middle class is not emerging. So I would take people who've built businesses, who've started with capital, seen markets, grown markets, understood them, and as a community start building a middle ground. And there's a huge benefit and there's a huge intersection with government here, because every time we build a business, we create a tax base. So the government gets 38% of this game by definition. Okay? There's also UIF. At the moment, UIF are paying out to unemployed people. If we create that as a job, they receive in. It's a double whammy for them. So government have got the data, government are SARS, and so it's a collaborative effort. But the mindset is not social rescue. The mindset is invest in establishing businesses which can get capital at the right price from the formal markets within the next 3 to 5 years. And that, if you do it right, okay, we'll move away from capital transfers and ownership transfers towards creating businesses, and more importantly than just creating the value, we will create the prospect of economic dignity. And for the first time since 2010, when we built stadiums together, we'll create common purpose. And so you need a business mindset. You need a long-term business mindset that's not going to get a popular return. It's going to get an economic return. And that's, 500 billion. If you gave it to 10 people, you gave them 50 billion each, and you said, go and spend it. Don't think, do what you would do if it was your own money. I promise you, you'll build an ecosystem which will be the foundation of the next growth phase of our country. And we need to repay debt. I've said this before, you can't borrow money to repay debt. We need to create income streams and vested interests. And we need business people to do that. We need people who know what it takes, how long it takes, and what the equations are in the income statement and balance sheet that work and ones that don't.
Well, I hope they're listening, Mark. I don't want to be a party pooper here, but the problem with corruption that we have at the moment, I mean, it's endemic in our society, in the political classes. Can we put this type of plan forward? Can we make it work if that is going to continue?
I doubt anyone will take this too seriously. Because we're basically taking away their choice. And so, but if there's a mindset that changes, so many missing elements in the legislation and otherwise in relation to government procurement and all of these things. I've never found mention in the PFMA of fair market value, of return on capital, of the metrics that drive sustainable, successful businesses. I've found laws which are put there in place to catch the wrong people doing the wrong things, not to enable the right people to do the right thing. So in collaboration with government, these people that I'm talking about are of today's age. I'm not talking about, only people with vast experience, but you can have a captain sitting in the cockpit and a young pilot flying the aeroplane who knows what's going on the ground, okay, so to speak. And so, corruption doesn't come into the equation when you do things at the right price for the right reason, at fair market value, because there's no money left to play with. If there's a proper margin between a buyer and a seller, and they're fair and they at arm's length with one another, and you're building valid businesses, there just isn't space, for corruption, because the cost of capital has to be serviced. Now, if you get awarded a tender of hundreds of millions, as seems to be happening every day, you referred earlier this morning to the kleptocracy, whatever you call it, is that the money is for free. And absent an appreciation of money, you cannot deploy it properly. So, I used to have a rule that if you said the word billion within the first 20 minutes of our meeting, you closed the meeting. Well, I found I'm not in any meetings anymore. But billion is a big number. It take you, 11,000 days to count to a billion, excluding interest. It's a lot of money. And we have billions floating all over the place, and their cost is zero. And their obligation to be repaid seems to me to be zero. You need business mindsets to stop that, so that money is invested in returns, not in populist support. And we must move away from social rescue towards, social, creation. I mean, social support starts at the age of 6 by having adequate schooling with a proper toilet in it and things of that nature. We're spending money when people have fallen over, not to make sure that they don't. And so a business mindset must permeate the funds flow, as limited as it is, that comes from the business sector and gets flowed into the dispensation by government. And this is not just a South African thing.
Okay, Mark,
but we're in a crisis.
To leave it there. We are in a crisis indeed. Mark Barnes, thank you. Let's take a quick look at the markets.